me, 29 inventory manager at a used bookstore called The Second Shelf. 6 employees, 2 floors, 1 owner. The owner is Rena. She signs my paychecks, and she has never once let me win an argument about shelving fiction by mood instead of alphabet. December. Store holiday party, which for us means closing early, cheap wine and coffee mugs, and a playlist somebody's cousin made. Rena in her giant gray cardigan, hair in the usual messy bun, roasting a regular customer who once asked her to recommend a book like a podcast. Everybody's laughing. She isn't. That's the thing about her deadpan. She doesn't chase the laugh. She just puts it on the table and walks away. We'd been circling each other for months, long talks after close, arguing about endings, her leaving little post-it notes with quotes on them in weird sections. I'd been telling myself it was a work thing. It was not a work thing. So, I go into the stockroom to grab more mugs. She follows me in and shuts the door. Not slams, shuts. "I'm tipsy," she said. "Not drunk. I want that on record." "Noted," I said. "Do you want the mugs or the record?" She kissed me. I kissed her back. Both of us fully aware. 2 adults making a decision next to a box of unsold cookbooks. "Okay, kid. Yes, this is the part you asked about. No, you are not getting the rest of the stockroom. Ask me again when you're 40. Next morning, I wake up hungover in the good way and panicking in the bad way. I text something extremely smooth like, "Hey, about last night, I'm sorry if I made things weird. You're my boss and I don't want to blow up your store. 3 dots, long 3 dots. Then Rena texted, "No regrets, let's keep it professional." And then, 10 seconds later, "Also you left your scarf here," which, honestly, brutal and kind at the same time. Very her. So, we go professional, painfully professional. "Good morning. Vendor invoices. Do we reorder the vampire one?" "Yes, we reorder the vampire one. It sells to people who claim they hate vampires." I'm restocking poetry on the Thursday, and I catch her watching me from the register with this small, unguarded smile. The second I look up, she drops her eyes to the receipt tape like it owes her money. That should have been nothing. Instead, I stood there holding 12 copies of a book about grief thinking, "Oh no, I like her. I actually like her. This is going to cost me." A week later, there's a used paperback sitting on my desk. No note on top. But inside, in pencil in the margin, in her handwriting, "He knew, he just didn't say. Coward." With a little arrow at the character. That's how Rena talks when she doesn't want to talk. I read that page about 9 times and then reshelved my whole feelings problem under fiction. A couple of weeks later, something's off with her. She's pale. She's tired in a way sleep doesn't seem to fix. She makes tea for everyone else out of habit. She hands me mine without asking because she remembers I take it with too much honey, and then leaves her own cup sitting there going cold. Twice I catch her sitting down on the step stool in the back like she just needs the floor to stop moving. Then Monday morning, I get the text. Rena texted the group, "Canceling staff meeting, reschedule later this week." She has never canceled a staff meeting. She once ran one with the flu and a bucket nearby, purely out of spite. I text her directly. "You good?" She wrote back, "Fine, just tired." Then, after a minute, "Can you handle the vendor call? You're better at Kamal than I am." That's what got me. Not the canceled meeting. The fact that she handed me something instead of white-knuckling it herself, which for her is basically a flare gun. So I took the call. Then I stood in the poetry section, holding my phone, looking at those 2 little messages, and started counting backward. 3 weeks after the party, Rena texted me on a Saturday morning. "Are you free at 10? Not work. The coffee place with the bad chairs?" I typed 4 different replies and sent, "Yes." I spent the whole walk over building theories. She's firing me. She's selling the store. She's about to tell me the kiss was a mistake, and she needs the scarf situation resolved permanently. My brain went everywhere except where it should have gone. She was already there. Espresso in front of her, untouched, which was strange because Rena drinks coffee like it's a job. She had that steady look she uses on customers who ask for refunds. "Sit," she said, so I sat. "I'm pregnant," she said. "It's yours." I did 2 tests and then a doctor, because I didn't trust the tests. Everything in my head went blank. Full white screen. I remember hearing the milk steamer and thinking, "Wow, that's loud." "Say something," she said. "How long have you known?" 9 days. She turned her cup a 1/4 inch. They date it from before it happens, which makes no sense to me. So, on paper, I'm about 5 weeks. In real life, it's been 3. That's the stupidest math I've ever heard. Right? And she almost smiled. Almost. That was the only crack in the whole performance. Then she went straight into the part she'd clearly rehearsed. She said she was keeping it. She said she'd already decided, alone, before telling me. So I wasn't part of that decision. She said she didn't want money, didn't want to talk about obligations, didn't want me feeling trapped by a woman who signs my paychecks. You have a job here as long as you want it, she said. That doesn't change. This isn't a package deal. And I sat there realizing she'd built the whole speech to give me an exit. She'd spent 9 days working out how to tell me in a way that cost me nothing. Can I talk now? I asked. Please. I want in. She blinked. In. Not a check, not a birthday card, actual in. Appointments, 3 a.m, the boring parts, the parts where I'm bad at it. My hands were shaking, so I hid them under the table. I'm not doing the thing where I show up in 8 years and want credit. She didn't answer for a while. Then her eyes went shiny and she got mad about it, blinking hard and looking down at the table, like her own face had betrayed her. Don't do that, she said. Do what? Be easy about it. I had a whole plan for if you weren't. How was the plan? Grim, she said. There was a spreadsheet. That's my favorite thing she's ever said to me, and I still think about it. Here's the thing about Rena. She built that store from nothing. She does her own books, her own buying, fixes the register with a butter knife. She's not someone who asks. So, her sitting there letting me see her eyes wet was, for her, basically handing me a key. We worked out what we could. There's a first scan in 2 weeks, the one where they check everything's where it should be. She said she'd send me the time. I said I'd be there. You don't have to come, she said. I know, send me the time. She wrote it on her receipt and slid it across the table, which was very her. Then she took a sip of the espresso, made a face, and pushed it away. Outside in the lot, we stood by her car, and neither of us knew how to end it. Hug felt like too much. Nothing felt like too little. So we shook hands. Actual handshake. 2 people who kissed in a stockroom and made a whole human, formally shaking hands next to a Corolla. She looked down at our hands. This is insane. Deeply, I said. She got in and drove off. I stood there for a minute doing my own math. About 2 weeks until I'd see the kid on a screen and probably say something stupid in a waiting room. Then I went home and did not sleep at all. 2 weeks later, I'm in a clinic waiting room at 9 a.m, holding a receipt with a time written on it like a concert ticket. Rena showed up 4 minutes after me. She sat down and said, "You came." I said I would. People say things. She pulled a paperback out of her bag and did not read a single page of it. They called her back. The tech asked if I was staying. Rena said yes before I could figure out a polite way to ask. So, the screen. I had built this up in my head as a big moment, and it still ambushed me. At first, it's honestly just gray fuzz. I'm looking at it thinking, is that a bean? Is that a rib? Do I pretend I see something? Then the tech turns the sound up, and there it is. Fast little thumping, way faster than I expected, like someone knocking on a door in a hurry. I hear this small noise next to me. Rena, blinking hard, tears sliding sideways toward her ears because she was lying flat, trying to keep her voice level while asking the tech if that speed was normal. It was normal. It was good, actually. My own eyes went. I didn't even fight it. I reached over and took her hand, and she didn't pull away. She squeezed hard enough that it hurt a little. Afterward, they gave us a printout, which honestly looks like weather radar. We got out to the lot and sat in her car, and neither of us started it, just sat there. That was real, I said. She nodded, still holding my hand, over the gear shift, both of us staring out the windshield at a pharmacy sign. I thought I'd feel more in control after, she said. I felt in control this whole time. That lasted about 9 seconds. You cried before I did. I will deny that under oath. Then we drove to the store and opened it at 10 like normal people. I put the printout in my wallet where it stayed until it wore soft at the folds. Okay, kid. Quick note. Yes, that's the fuzzy picture on the shelf by the register. No, that's not your foot, that's a bladder. Your mother had that argument with me for 6 years, and she was right, which is not a sentence I enjoy. After that, I got weird, not bad weird, research weird. I started sending Rena links at 11 at night, car seats, A stroller with reviews describing it as aggressive. A crib that cost more than my rent and had a name like a Scandinavian villain. She replied to one with a laughing emoji, which from Rena is basically a standing ovation. Then, you realize the baby will be the size of a bean for months. I texted, a bean needs a plan. She texted, go to sleep, Ryan. But she kept opening them. I could see it. By the following week, the sickness hit her hard, and whoever named it morning sickness was a liar. Hers was 4 in the afternoon, every day, right in the middle of the after-work rush. She'd hand off the register, walk to the back with her chin up like nothing was happening, and come back 8 minutes later, paler and completely composed. So, I started bringing ginger tea in a thermos, not making a thing of it, just leaving it on the desk before my shift, because the store's kettle takes 11 minutes and she never waits that long. One day I came in and the thermos was already washed and sitting on my crate with a post-it on it. All it said was, 4 in the afternoon is a coward's hour. I kept the post-it. Obviously I kept the post-it. And I started staying late. Inventory is my thing. I know what's on those shelves without looking, which drives her insane, because she wants a system she can audit and I am the system. She used to leave at 9 and let me lock up. Now she stayed too, sat on the step stool with the tea, reading me numbers off the clipboard while I counted, telling me which regulars she's decided to stop recommending books to. One night she got to the end of the sheet and didn't get up. I used to hate closing alone, she said. I never told anybody that. I let the silence sit and kept counting, and she stayed on that stool until I was done. About a week later, the numbers went bad. Not dramatic, just the slow kind. 2 big buyers stopped coming in. The school across the street changed its reading list, and nobody wanted the old titles. I saw it first, because I see it first. That's my job. I went to tell her, and the office door was almost shut. She was at the desk with the bank page open and a calculator, and she was crying. No sound, just tears running while she typed. I have never wanted to leave a room more. I went in anyway. How bad? I asked. Don't. She closed the laptop halfway. Rena. She stopped fighting it. Rent's fine this month. Next month's tight. And I priced daycare last night. She laughed in a way that wasn't a laugh. Do you know what daycare costs? It costs a car. So I said the thing. I have about 19,000 saved, boring index funds, built over 6 years of being a person with no hobbies. I told her she could have whatever she needed. No paperwork, no interest. Her whole face changed. Not grateful, closed. No, it's just sitting there. I said no. She stood up, which took her a second, and that made her angrier. You already agreed to a kid you didn't plan. That's enough. That's more than enough. The store is mine. My debt, my lease, my problem. It's not charity. It's a loan. It's a leash. She heard herself say it and looked away. That's not what I meant. Yeah, it is. Get back on the floor, please. So, I got back on the floor. That was a bad week. We were polite, terribly polite. She said good morning, and I said good morning, and both of us wanted to throw a book. She did the register on days I did receiving, so we wouldn't overlap. She was mad and I was hurt, and neither of us is built to say either of those things out loud. But I kept bringing her lunch. Soup from the Vietnamese place 2 doors down, the one with the broth she can actually keep down. I'd leave it on the desk and go. She never said thank you that week. She always ate it. On the Thursday, the empty container was on my crate, rinsed, with a rubber band around it. That's the closest thing to a peace treaty I've ever received. Okay, kid, since you asked, no, this is not the fight where the chair broke. Different fight. Later. Focus. The following week, I was clearing out the crawl space above the stockroom because I had a theory about storing overflow up there. Found a plastic bin of her old junk, permits, a busted price gun, and a photo. Rena, maybe 8 years younger, standing in front of the store on opening day. Hand-painted sign. No shelves in yet. You can see straight through to bare walls. She's not smiling at the camera. She's looking up at her own sign, like she can't believe it's legal. I brought it down and put it on her desk that night after close. She went completely still, picked it up, sat. Where was this? Crawl space, in a bin with a price gun that tried to kill me. That thing is a menace. She kept looking at the photo. My aunt took this. She's the only one who showed up. I sat down on the stool. Didn't ask anything. Sometimes that's the trick with her. My mom moved us 11 times before I was 16, she said. Every time, a new guy, a new plan, a new city that was going to fix it. I read in cars a lot. She set the photo flat. When I signed that lease, I was 24 and terrified. But I thought, if I own the door, nobody can make me leave. I didn't say anything for a bit. That's why the money thing, I said. That's why the money thing. She rubbed her eyes. If I take yours and it goes under, then it's your door too, and I've done it again. I've made someone else responsible for whether I'm okay. That's not what a partner is. I don't have data on that, she said. I have data on the other thing. And that was the first time I understood that the store wasn't a business to her. It was proof. She put the photo in her desk drawer instead of throwing it out. Then she looked at me for a long second. Don't stop with the soup, she said. By the second trimester, the sickness eased off, and something else started. She was showing, not much, but enough that the cardigan stopped hiding it. Our regulars are readers, which means they are nosy. A woman who buys 3 mysteries a week asked Rena straight out if she was expecting, at the register, in front of 4 people. Rena went very flat and said, I'm expecting these to be back in 2 weeks. After that, I started intercepting. A guy asked me who the dad was, and I said, we don't discuss staff medical stuff. Another regular asked if she was going to sell the store, and I said the store's fine. Would you like a bag? I wasn't smooth about it. I was just fast. Rena watched me do this maybe 5 times before she said anything. Then one afternoon, she came up behind me in history and said, You've become a wall. Sorry. I didn't say stop. She straightened a spine on the shelf. I've spent 9 years handling everything at that counter. It's strange having someone step in front of me. Then she walked off before I could answer, which is her signature move. A week or so later, there was a prenatal class orientation at the hospital. She sent me the details with no comment, which I've learned means she wants me there, but won't say it in words. The instructor had us all sit on mats in pairs. She went around asking how long everyone had been together, got to us, looked at Rena, then me, and said, And how did you two meet? Rena said, Work. The instructor said, Oh, that's lovely. Office romance. Neither of us corrected her. I looked at Rena. Rena looked at the mat. Nobody said the word boss. Nobody said the word accident. And we just let this room full of strangers believe we were a couple for 90 minutes. Then came the breathing. I had to sit behind her and count out loud while she did this slow, hissing exhale. My job was to say the numbers and keep a hand flat on her back. I could feel her ribs going. Around the 4th round, she lost it, started laughing, which ruins the breathing entirely, and the instructor gave us a look. You sound like a hostage negotiator, she whispered. You sound like a punctured tire. Both true. She leaned back, still laughing, and her shoulders came to rest against my chest. She didn't move away, just stayed there and kept breathing. I remember thinking very clearly, oh no, because it wasn't the kiss at the party. It was this. Sitting on a hospital mat, counting to 4, wanting nothing else out of my life. The crib showed up at her apartment the next week. She lives above the store, up a back staircase, 1 bedroom, books stacked on the floor where furniture should be. I said I'd build it. She said she could build it. I said I know, and she let me anyway, which for her is a concession. So I'm on her floor with 40 bolts and a wordless instruction sheet drawn by a lunatic. She sat on the couch with tea and heckled me for an hour and a half. You've read that page 4 times. It's got no words. It's just arrows and a confused man. You do a thing with your mouth when you're reading it, like it insulted you. That's my concentrating face. It's a face, she said, and drank her tea. And honestly, yeah, kid, the crib was upside down for about 20 minutes. Your mother let me get almost to the end before mentioning it. We also got into a habit around then. She'd been buying used pregnancy books, obviously, because that's the whole store. Except she started writing in the margins and leaving them on my crate. One book claimed, You should never eat cheese again. She'd written next to it, Author has an agenda. Another said, The father's role is to provide calm. She'd written, Good luck, I wrote back. Called one of them an unreliable narrator, which is a book term for when you can't trust the person telling the story. She circled it and wrote, Finally correct. That night, after the crib, I was packing up my tools and she was still on the couch, feet up. Ryan? Yeah. I like having you around. She said it to the ceiling. More than I planned to, considerably more. I put the screwdriver down. My hands were doing that shaking thing again. I like being around, I said. I'd be here even if there was no baby. You should probably know that. She stayed quiet long enough that I almost started talking again. Then she said, "Okay, just that. Not yes, not no." And she didn't ask me to leave, and I didn't for another hour. A week or so later, a letter came in the store mail. The building owner is raising the rent 40% when the lease renews. Not illegal, just a guy who looked at the block and did math. Rena read it standing at the counter. Then she put it in the drawer and said, "Can you take receiving today?" And that was it. The door closed. Not a fight this time. Worse. She just went quiet and efficient. The way she must have been for 9 years before I ever worked there. She stopped staying for inventory. She started leaving the annotated books in a stack on her own desk instead of on my crate. One night, I found the tea I'd brought her poured out in the back sink, cup washed, upside down on the rack. That one stung more than the rent letter. I asked her once, straight out, "Are we not talking about it?" "There's nothing to say until I have options," she said. "I'm not going to sit around being pitied in my own store. Nobody's pitying you. Then let me work." So here's what I did instead of arguing, which is that I went home and became a very boring man with a notebook. I know that store better than anyone alive, including her, because she does the buying and I do the counting. I know which shelves earn and which shelves are her personal taste losing money in public. I put together a real proposal, sales history, best months, what the events nights actually bring in, how much of the stock turns over. Then I started emailing people. 2 small business lenders, a local business group, and a woman named Simone, who owns 3 coffee places and had bought a used cookbook off me twice. She's the one who wrote back. I did all of it at night for 2 weeks and told Rena nothing, which I knew was a coward's move even while I was doing it. She found out because she's not stupid. I left the notebook on the desk when I went to help a customer with a broken bag handle. Came back and she was reading it. Page 11, which is the page where I'd written down what the store clears in a good year. "Ryan?" "Yeah. What is this?" I could have lied. "It's a pitch for someone to finance the store, not me, an actual outside backer." She kept turning pages. She wasn't yelling, which was scarier. "You've been going through my books." "I've been going through my own numbers. That's my system in there. I built it." She stopped on the page with the events nights. "This is accurate." "I know." "It's more accurate than what I gave the bank in March." She sat down slowly. "Why would you do this and not tell me?" "Because you'd have said no in the first sentence." "I would have." "Right, so." She put the notebook down and rubbed her forehead. Then she asked the question she'd clearly been holding for 2 weeks. "Why do you care this much about a bookstore?" And honestly, the true answer came out before I could sand it down. "I don't," I said. "I don't care about the bookstore. I care that it's yours." She looked up. "You were 24 and everybody in your life had already proved they'd leave, and you signed a lease anyway. You built a door nobody can make you walk out of." My voice was doing something embarrassing. "Our kid is going to grow up knowing their mom did that. I'm not letting some guy with a calculator take that away with a baby on the way." She was very still. Then, "She." "Sorry, I've been saying she in my head. I don't know why." "No, she stopped. "It's fine. Keep doing that." And then she broke. Not the quiet kind. Both hands over her face, shoulders shaking in the office chair of a store she'd closed early. I got down on the floor next to the chair because standing over her felt wrong, and she reached out, caught my sleeve in one hand, and held on. "I'm so tired of being the only one who cares if it survives," she said. "You're not." "I know. That's the part I can't handle." She let go of my sleeve, dragged both hands down her face, and looked at the notebook again. Then she did the thing I did not expect. "Who wrote back?" she asked. "Simone, the coffee shop lady. She wants a meeting." Rena took a breath. "Then I'm doing the pitch, not you." The meeting with Simone landed the following week. We practiced for 4 nights in the closed store, Rena on the stool, me sitting on a stack of hardcovers being an unhelpful audience. First run, she was terrible, apologetic. Kept saying, "I know it's a small business, but..." I stopped her. "Cut the butt. It is small. It's profitable in 8 months out of 12, which most restaurants would kill for. Say that instead." Second run was better. Third run she got sharp, and when she's sharp, she's genuinely something to watch. She started roasting her own competition. There's a chain 2 blocks over, and she described their staff pick section as Whatever the distributor had a pallet of. Keep that, I said. That's mean. It's mean and it's true. Simone owns 3 coffee shops. She hates chains more than you do. Rena wrote it on her card. Then she glanced at me over the card and said, "You know, I could have done this alone." "I know. I'm saying it because it's true, not because I want you to leave. I know that too." The actual meeting took an hour. Simone came in and walked the whole floor first. She asked Rena about her buying process, and Rena answered like a person who has read every book in the building because she has. I sat there and said maybe 11 words. It was the proudest hour of my life to that point. At the end, Simone said she was in. A private loan for the higher rent, a small renovation, and enough cushion to hold through the slow months. Terms the store could actually survive. Then she named her condition. "I'm not lending into a one-person operation," she said. "I've watched 3 of those close. Owner burns out, business dies. You're 4 months from a baby." She pointed her pen at me. "He knows the numbers better than you do. I want him on the papers. Equal partner, real stake, real say. Otherwise, I'm out." The room went very quiet. Rena said, "I'll need to think about it." Simone said, "Take a week," and left her card on the counter. I want to be clear that I did not know that was coming. I'd asked for money for her store. Simone had her own reasons. Rena put her coat on and said she was going to walk. Not with me, just walk. And I let her, because pushing her right then would have been the fastest way to lose. She was gone about 3 hours. I closed up. Around 9, I texted her. I wrote, "Whatever you decide, I'm not going anywhere. If you say no to Simone, I'll help you find another way. If you say no to me on the papers, that's allowed, and I'll still be at the appointments, and I'll still bring the soup. You don't owe me a business." She didn't reply that night. She told me later she read it 4 times sitting on a bench outside a laundromat, crying in public like a maniac. She'd spent 9 years waiting for the sentence, where somebody adds a condition, and it didn't come. "Okay, kid, this part your mother tells better than me. But she's at the register pretending not to listen, so I'm doing it." A few nights after that, she's alone upstairs in her apartment, almost midnight, lying on her side on the couch because the bed had become a negotiation, and the baby kicked, properly. Not the little flutter stuff, a real definite someone's in here kick against her side. And her first move, without thinking, was to reach for her phone to tell me. She stopped. Because we weren't anything. Because she'd spent the week deciding whether to let me have a say in a shop I'd already saved with my own free labor. Because there was no word for what I was. She sat there in the dark holding her phone and did the math on her own behavior, poured out my tea, took the books off my crate, walked away from the meeting alone, went cold every single time I got close, while I kept turning up with soup and a thermos and a screwdriver like an idiot. Her aunt was the only person who came to her opening. 11 moves before 16. And she'd been running the exact same play on me that everybody else had run on her, just from the other side. She told me she said it out loud in an empty room. "You're going to lose him being clever." Then she texted me at 12:14 in the morning. 2 lines. She kicked, hard, ribs. And then, "Come to the store early tomorrow, before we open. I have things to say, and I want to say them once." I got to the store at 7 the next morning. Rena was already down there with the lights half on, sitting in the window seat where she reads on Sundays. "Sit," she said. So I sat. "We've done this before." "I'm saying yes to Simone," she said. "You go on the papers. Equal." I started to say something, and she held up a hand. "Let me finish. I've been up since 4. She took a breath. "I'm not doing it because she made me. I'm doing it because your numbers are better than mine. And I've known that for 2 years and never said it. Rena." "And," she said louder, "I'm terrified, not of the money, of the part where I need you and then something happens to you, and I've built the whole thing on a person again." Her hands were flat on her knees. "That's the actual fear. I've never said it to anybody. And here's the thing. I wasn't calm about it either. I'm scared too," I said. "You know what I keep thinking? That you only keep me around because I'm useful. That the day I stop being useful, that's it." I laughed badly. "So I keep being useful. It's a whole hobby." She stared at me. "That's insane." "Yeah, well, you're not a service, Ryan." She said it almost angrily. "You're the only person who's ever walked into that door and stayed." We sat there in a half-lit bookstore at 7 in the morning, both admitting the ugliest thing in our heads. Neither of us said the word we were circling. The papers took a few days. Simone's lawyer, my name typed next to hers, a stack of pages, one pen. It was the least romantic document in history, and I have never been happier to sign anything. When it was done, Simone shook both our hands and left. Then Rena turned around and hugged me. Full hug, arms up around my neck, and I could feel the bump between us, which is a bizarre thing to feel during a hug. It went on a long time, way past a business hug. Neither of us let go first for a while. "Congratulations," she said into my shoulder. "You own half of a losing proposition. Best day of my life. You need better days." After that, we got busy. By the time third trimester rolled around, it flattened her. She's small, she was carrying a lot, and by then, even the stairs to her apartment were an event. So, I took the heavy stuff. All receiving, all boxes, all ladders, no arguments. She ran the floor, and the buying, and the money, and I did everything that involved lifting or bending or crouching. One afternoon, she was watching me carry 4 cases of remainders past the register and said, loudly, in front of 2 customers, "There he goes, my work husband." I nearly dropped the cases. One of the customers said, "That's sweet," and Rena said, "It's not, he's a nightmare about shelving," and went back to the register with a completely straight face. "Okay, kid, no, that's still not the chair fight. We're getting there." The thing happened during the big inventory, about 6 weeks after the papers. We do a full count once a year. It's brutal. It's midnight. Everything's on the floor. I'm on the ladder in fiction, calling numbers down. She's on the stool with the clipboard, shoes off, one hand on her belly the whole time. Around 1 in the morning, we hit the end of the sheet, and she didn't get up. Same as she used to, except now she stays every night, so it wasn't remarkable. What was remarkable is what she said. "Ryan," I came down the ladder. "Yeah. I can't imagine doing this without you." She was looking straight at me, that intense way she looks at people when she actually means something. Any of it, the store, the kid, all of it. I crouched down in front of the stool so we were level. She reached out and put her palm against my cheek. That's it. That's all. Her palm against my cheek at 1 in the morning, surrounded by 900 unshelved paperbacks. I leaned in. She leaned in. We got close enough that I could feel her breath against my cheek. Then she stopped, pulled back an inch, took her hand away. "I can't," she said. "Okay. It's not that I don't want to." Her voice went thin. "I have too much of you now. The store, the papers, the baby. If I add this and it goes wrong, I lose every single thing at once." She got up, put the clipboard on the counter, said goodnight, and went upstairs. I finished the count alone. Took me until 4. 3 days later, she tried to fire me from my own life. I came in, and she had a folder on the counter. She'd gone to Simone's lawyer without telling me. A buyout schedule. Numbers where she'd buy out my half over 18 months, and my name would come off the papers. "What is this?" "An exit," she said. "A clean one. You keep the co-parenting, you keep the appointments, you keep everything with the baby. You just stop being chained to a bookstore." Chained. You never wanted a business, Ryan. You wanted to do the right thing by a kid you didn't plan, and then it snowballed into a lease and a lawyer. She wasn't crying. She had that flat, prepared voice, same as the coffee shop. "I'm not going to be the woman who trapped a guy because of one night in a stockroom. And kid, yes, this is the chair." That was the point where I put my hand on the back of one of those old reading chairs. The whole armrest came off in my hand, and I stood there holding it like an absolute clown. I didn't even notice. I just kept talking. "You went to a lawyer," I said, "about my stake, about my name, without asking me. I was trying to give you a way out. You decided how I feel and then filed paperwork about it." She opened her mouth and I kept going, which I never do. "Here's what I actually did. I built that pitch because you'd have said no to my savings. Fine. But I signed those papers with a pen, alone, after a full night of thinking about it. Nobody trapped me. You've been telling yourself, I'm a nice guy stuck in a bad situation, because that's easier than believing somebody looked at all of it and picked it on purpose. You can't know that yet. I've known since the party." That stopped her. "Not the pregnancy," I said. "The party. I kissed you back in that stockroom because I'd been wanting to for months. The baby didn't create this. The baby just made it impossible for me to keep pretending I only respected your inventory habits." She sat down on the arm of the busted chair. "Then you get the version of me who's scared all the time. That's the deal." I know what the deal is. I've been in it for 6 months. I stopped that kiss, she said. You did. I've stopped everything, the whole way through. She looked at her hands. You said you'd be here without the baby, and I said okay like a robot. I'm the one who kept doing that, not you. Yeah, I said. I noticed. I'm going to keep flinching. Then flinch. I'll still be at the 4 o'clock shift. She laughed wetly and put the folder in the recycling bin under the counter without opening it again. The next day we sat down with Simone and finalized everything properly. The loan, the renovation budget, the higher rent covered, my name where it already was. Simone looked at the folder story for about 2 seconds and said, So we're done being dramatic? And Rena said, Provisionally. That night I helped her up the back stairs because by then the stairs were genuinely a problem, and I stopped at the top instead of leaving. I need to ask you something, and I want you to actually think about it. Terrifying start. Let me move in. She went still in the doorway. Not on the couch, not as help. My name on the lease next to yours, my books on your shelves, my rent, my share of the dishes. My heart was hammering. You told me the reason you signed that lease at 24 was so nobody could make you leave, so I'm not asking to visit. I'm asking to be on the door. She stared at me for what felt like an hour. Your books are all sci-fi. Some of them. They'd have to be shelved separately. That's a lie, and you know it. You'd mix them within a week. She put her hand on the doorframe. Her eyes went wet, and she looked annoyed about it. Say the whole sentence, she said. The real one, not the least part. So, I said it. I love you, I said. Not because of the baby, not because of the store. I want to live where you live. She closed her eyes for a second. Then, yes. Yes to which part? All of it. The lease, the dishes, you. She grabbed the front of my shirt. I love you. I've loved you since the stockroom, and I've been an absolute coward about it for 6 months. You were, I said. Don't agree with me right now. So, I kissed her. First time since the party. In a doorway at the top of a back staircase, with a bump between us and my keys still in my hand. My stuff moved in over the next 2 weekends. My name went on the lease, and she mixed my sci-fi into her fiction section within 4 days, exactly like I said she would. Our daughter came 3 weeks early. Rena's water broke in the poetry section, which she has never let anyone forget, and she made me lock the register before we left. 14 hours. She broke a plastic bed rail. I cut the cord, and my hands would not stop shaking. And then the room went quiet, and there was this tiny, furious person on her chest. Our family, I said. That's all I had. Rena nodded. She was wrecked and gray, and the most alive I'd ever seen her. We named her Mira. Okay, so that's it. That's the whole thing you asked about. 8 years old, sitting cross-legged in the window seat with the store closed. And your mother's at the register, counting out drawer money and pretending she's not listening. She's been not listening for 20 minutes. You want to know about the notes, right? Every book in this house has pencil in the margins. That's because your mom and I couldn't say things out loud for a long time, so we said them in books instead. That's why the pregnancy guides upstairs look like they were attacked. Yes, one of them says author has an agenda 9 separate times. That's her. And yes, you started doing it too, which we love. But stop doing it in the store copies. Those are for sale. Dad? Yeah. Why didn't you and Mom get married? Rena's hand stopped in the register drawer. She didn't look up. She wanted to hear my answer as much as you did, which is very her. So I said, Do you know what your mom was most scared of, ever? Not spiders. Being somewhere she could get thrown out of. Her mom moved her 11 times before she was 16. You told me, 11. Right. So, when I wanted to prove I wasn't going anywhere, a party wasn't going to do it. A ring wasn't going to do it either. She'd have thanked me and then stayed awake all night doing math. I pointed at the counter. My name's on the papers for this store. My name's on the lease upstairs. My books are on her shelves, badly organized, according to me. If I ever walked out, I'd lose everything I own too. That's not a promise. That's a fact. So you built a house instead of a wedding. We built something better than a wedding. We built a home where we both belong. Same door, both names. The register drawer shut. Rena came over, put her hand flat on the top of your head, and said, He also cries at oven commercials, so consider the source. I do not. He does. She sat down on the arm of the reading chair, the one with the armrest I fixed badly. She was smiling that small, closed mouth one she does about 8 times a year. Then she looked at me over your head and said, "Best decision I never made on purpose." And honestly, kid, that's the sentence. That's the whole story. Now, go turn the front lights off. Your mother's tired, and I still have receiving in the morning.